it's Connie with SimplySimpleStamping.com. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's video. Hey, we're going to be talking about Stampin' Blends. Now guys, I've got to tell you, I'm not a watercolor artist, and I found the Stampin' Blends to be absolutely amazing for creating gorgeous shading. I'm telling you, fantastic. I'm excited to share with you some of my tips on Stampin' Blends, so let's get started. First, let me share the cardstock you're going to need to create today's card. I'm going to let Poppy Parade be my focal color today. I have a piece of Poppy Parade that's cut 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4 inches. I have 3 pieces of Whisper White thick cardstock. I have 2 pieces that are the same. These are 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then I have another little piece 2.5 by 2.5. I'm also going to be using a little piece of crushed curry that is 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. You can see those are just going to layer. You may have heard this is a special stamp set and a special bundle available just for August 2018. It's called Blended Seasons, and you can find out more information about this set at SimplySimpleStamping.com. We are going to use these gorgeous flowers, and over here the sentiment wishing you all the best. And of course the star of today's show are the Stampin' Blends. I will be using the Poppy Parade combo, so that has a light and a dark. I have got the dark Daffodil Delight, and then the light and dark combo, and that is in Granny Apple Green. When you're working with the blends, it's important that you use the right ink. I mean important. Okay, so we're going to be using the Memento ink pad. This is specially designed to work with Stampin' Blends and with alcohol-based markers. I'm going to begin by inking up that gorgeous flower stamp, and we're going to stamp that right off the right edge of one piece of that 4 by 5 1/4 Whisper White. I want to give that a really nice press, maybe give that just a second, let that black ink really soak into the cardstock. Gorgeous. Let me set that off to the side. I want to go ahead and bring in the other piece of white thick, and I'm just going to ink up this corner because I just want to add just a touch. This will be for the inside of the card. I'll now stamp the wishing you all the best on that 2.5 by 2.5 cardstock. And then just as I did before, let's just hit just the corner. All right, our stamping is done. It's time to come in and do our coloring. Now, a little disclaimer, I am no expert when it comes to using alcohol markers, but I can tell you I am madly in love, and I'm absolutely loving the blending ability, and I don't have to go take a class, and I don't have to be an expert. And really, Stampin' Up stamps lend themselves so perfectly for the Stampin' Blends. I'm going to use the detail that's already in the stamp to do the work for me. So one thing I want to comment on the Stampin' Blends, you notice there's a thick line and there's a thin line. That means we have a thin tip on one end and a thick tip on the other. So depending on how much coverage you need, you'll determine which end of the marker to use. I'm going to work with the thin tip, and I want to come in and color the center of my flowers. Now let me come in with the Poppy Parade. I'm actually going to start with the darker marker, and I want to use that fine tip, and I'm just going to draw around these lines here in the flower. Look, I don't even have to be neat. Trust me, you're going to see how these blends are going to blend and make things look amazing. So let me get these last 2. And now, because I wanted to deepen the center, I'm just going to trace around the center. Every time you use a marker, be sure to go ahead and put the cap on it. It's an alcohol-based marker, and that means it can dry out quickly. So no leaving markers open. All right, let's come in now with the light Poppy Parade. I'm going to use the thick tip on this one, and let me show you the blending magic. Here we go. You notice I don't even have to work at it. I'm not doing anything in particular. One thing I love about the blends is there's no lines. You don't have to worry about lines. And if you've used markers or watercolor pencils, you know exactly the lines I'm talking about, don't you? So you can see this alcohol blends into the alcohol of that darker color, and it just starts to blend it together. And I do like to try to work with one flower at a time. Again, because that alcohol dries, I want to work as quickly as I can on one area. So we'll go ahead and finish coloring in this flower. Do you see how nice and detailed that is? Now, I have a little boo-boo, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. You gotta love that we have a fix to the boo-boos, and that is called the color lifter. Now, in this case, I am going to use the smaller tip, and watch this. I'm simply going to rub this on, and it's going to start to just remove that color. Now, that technique that I just did on the flower with the dark where I drew the lines, we're going to do that also on the leaves. And then we do have this stem in here, so I'm just going to color it. I'm not going to necessarily try to do any shading, but look at that. I can totally fix that little boo-boo that I had there. So there's my dark granny apple green. And now my light granny apple green, I can come in and just start to blend. You notice I'm using the thin tip now, only because this is a smaller area. And so I wanted to give myself a little more control. And that's what I love about having these dual tip markers. Now, if you do this and you feel you want a little more color, just bring it in. That's what's great with these markers. They're just gorgeous. I can add maybe a little shadow there, and to smooth it out, I just come back in with that lighter color, and look at that. Gorgeous blending. Guys, I'm not even talented at this, and look at what I'm doing. All right, I finished up my flowers and my leaves. Now, for these little ones here, I'm going to go ahead and just go with the Daffodil Delight. I'm not going to do any blending on them. I really just want to color them in, although if you had the combo pack, you could do this flower and do some detail too. But a couple other tips I want to tell you. When you're putting your caps back on, you want to make sure you go straight back on the cap and give it a click. It's tight, but that's because we need this to be very airtight. Again, it's an alcohol marker. You can see there's a hole right there, so it's not a matter of just all that air hitting it. So make sure you get it on real straight. The other tip that I wanted to give you when coloring, especially with this tip, with this fatter tip, guys, treat it like a paintbrush. So paint, don't color, don't use the tip like this, just paint. It's going to allow those tips to stay nice and sharp. And guys, we want our Stampin' Blends to last. Another tip you need to know when you're working with Stampin' Blends is to make sure you have some paper underneath you. Let me show you why. Yes, look at that. Ew, we wouldn't want that getting on your table, so you want to make sure you just have a piece of copy paper or Stampin' Up! Grid paper. Have that underneath you while you work. Now, I'm going to go ahead and work and get these two pieces colored in as well. I wanted to make the word best pop out. I'm going to share a fun tip. I'm going to use the thin tip of my Daffodil Delight marker, and watch what I'm going to do. I'm literally just going to go around the word best, just like so. And this is going to make that just kind of pop, go all around. And if you want, you can color those in, or you can leave them white and let it pop. But look at that. Doesn't that make that the word best? It's just nice to have just a little accent on that. It's time to put our card together, so we will layer our sentiment right there on the crushed curry cardstock. Now we can add our focal image here to the front of our Poppy Parade card base. Let me bring in my original here. You can see I added a few rhinestones just to give it some bling. And of course, there is my final piece that I've added to the inside of the card, so I have plenty of room to write my message. I hope that you enjoyed that card. Guys, these Stampin' Blends have turned my stamping world upside down. I'm not kidding. Coloring used to always be very tedious for me, and I didn't really enjoy it. I like to just stamp and be done, but Stampin' Blends have changed that. This gorgeous, soft, everything blends. I'm not trying to worry about lines or cover up lines. It really has totally transformed the way I look at stamping. I hope you're going to give blends a try. They are worth the investment. Trust me. Now, if you'd like more information about today's card, why don't you head over to simplysimplestamping.com. Just look for the August 16th, 2018 blog post. I'll have everything there. Photos, the complete supply list, measurements, everything that you need. And then if you'd like to order those Stampin' Blends, not a problem. Just click a pic. It'll take you right to my online store and you can order what you need. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one. Have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.